Okay, Oscar fans, the SAG Awards are over, and threw a wrench into this whole derby. Sasha Stone of Awards Daily, Denzel Washington, he hasn't won anything this season, and suddenly he seems to be stopping the Casey. Or is he?
Boy, that's a tough one. I thought early on that his performance was so good that he could challenge Casey Affleck, but as time wore on and Casey kept winning stuff, I thought, well, this is sort of a done deal. But then when SAG came up, people were like, oh, he's going to win because he never won before, you know? And I thought, nah, they're not going to do that. Like these after people, they're not going to do that. They're not going to know that Denzel never won a SAG, you know? So they're going to be like, nope, Casey. I thought they were going to just go general consensus all the way. And, but I guess somehow that news got out there, or they really liked Fences.
That Casey's performance is, we knew it was always vulnerable. It can still win. He can still win Best Actor at the Oscars. Of course he can. But we knew it doesn't fit the profile. It's not the bombastic sledgehammer performance that they always like the most of everything at the Oscars. The most costumes, the loudest movies win the Sound Awards. And they usually like the most performance. And certainly Viola has that in her category. But the Casey Affleck thing also, of course, has to do with the fact that he hasn't been campaigning because he doesn't want to come up before the press and face all those sexual has to deal with when reporters flock around. So that's taken him a little bit out of the limelight here. And the problem is, though, with the Denzel's won nothing. He lost the Globe to Ryan Gosling. He lost the Critics' Choice Award. It's different. Like if you look back a few years ago to Eddie Redmayne won SAG, and then all of a sudden he zoomed ahead to win the Oscar over Michael Keaton. But we knew that he was formidable because he had won the Globe. There were inklings out there. In the case of Eddie, he was shaking every hand, slapping every back in town. He had the great ground game. This year, Denzel's doing very little that I've seen anyway in terms of campaigning. It's not that he's not doing any, but a few years ago when he was in the running for Flight, he was everywhere. He was really working the campaign. This year, he just seems to be kind of coasting through, doing what he has to do as a team player, but the rules are off this year. It's hard to figure out where we are now.
I feel like that too. Like I feel like the stats are just off. I mean, you know, the SAG Ensemble stat with La La Land, which to me has been foolproof the entire time I've been covering the Oscars. The actors rule the Academy. I thought, no way do 2,000 people not pick that. And the whole two-hander thing never made sense to me because, you know, why are you putting John Legend out there and saying that John Legend is the part of the cast? Like, how can you say it's a two-hander and then ignore? And it doesn't matter anyway because in the past these other movies have gotten in even with that. But it does feel like that stat doesn't matter at all, and that La La Land is barreling ahead no matter what. So if I get rid of that stat, that's like my most reliable stat. And if you get rid of that, like anything can happen at this point, I think.
And
you can't even rely on stats.
And we're not going to learn much from BAFTA. Denzel's not nominated there. He's never won a BAFTA again, so that's not going to tell us much. It may tell us if Casey is vulnerable, if he loses there to one of his rivals.
Well, the problem I'm sorry.
The tea leaves are all screwed up,
Yeah, the problem with Casey Affleck, and I said this from the beginning, and you said it from the beginning, is not just that it's a subtle performance, but it's also that he doesn't transform himself. You know, he doesn't gain or lose weight. He doesn't, you know, he's not in a wheelchair and only moving his eyebrow. You know.
He doesn't become Stephen Hawking he
doesn't. Yeah, they usually go for that. But then again, we don't have that kind of performance really in the race anyway. So I thought, okay, well, it's just they love Manchester by the Sea, that he's good, and I still think he could win. I feel like it's 50-50 right now. If they love Manchester by the Sea and they wanted to award it, then they might pick Casey Affleck and then Fences gets supporting. The problem with what happened last night and the BAFTA is that Denzel has momentum because the BAFTA snub actually helped him because people found out that he's never been nominated for a BAFTA. How could Denzel Washington never have been nominated for a BAFTA? So never in all their history. So that helps him. It doesn't hurt him. Seeing them all on stage, all the winners, the two winners from Fences, and the two of them together are such a, are such a strong couple. you know, as collaborators. With him as the director and her as the co-star, the two of them won Tonys for their performances. Denzel directed it. Like, it's a formidable team, the two of them, coming into the race.
And it got nominated for Best Picture. It's up for 4 Oscars. It's up for Screenplay, and it's up for Picture. It's hard for actors to get nominated for Director. When they do, they often win, of course. But trying to get past that, the snobism of the and that kind of closed club sense of the director's branch is hard. But it seems at the Oscars to have the key things it needs to win for Denzel. I don't think it can win Best Picture, of course, but it could win Screenplay. It could win. We suddenly, as have to think, we really underestimated this movie.
I think we did. I think we underestimated it, especially considering how strong actors are in the Academy. Like, they're really big. They're 1,000-something, 1,200 members compared to the directors who were like 400 at the most, you know, these branches. So actors are a big deal, and this is a really actory movie. Denzel is incredibly popular among his peers. Casey Affleck would be coming in as kind of an outsider. So the only way he can really win is if they love Manchester by the Sea and they love his character. And we've seen it both ways, right? We've seen someone come along and win the SAG when someone else was winning. Wasn't that Halle Berry who won? Sissy Spacek, was it Sissy Spacek who was winning everything, and then Halle Berry came along and won the SAG, and then she won the Oscar. Denzel didn't win the SAG, but he also won the Oscar, so that was the big surprise. But it's really hard to award Viola Davis for Fences and not Denzel Washington, because they're so interlinked as characters, as collaborators, and they support each other. I don't know, you could just feel the energy, I think, last night in the two of them.
That's when we saw it, yeah. And we should explain that he's won twice before. If he wins again, he will join that pantheon of the actors, male actors who've won the most. And that includes Daniel Day-Lewis, Jack Nicholson, and Walter Brennan, of all people. But Katharine Hepburn over on the ladies' side still has more. She has 4. But if you look over the big pantheon, historic arc of the Oscars, Denzel's the one you would expect next to join that league.
Absolutely. I think so, too. I mean, I was really blown away by his performance in Fences. I mean, I wrote about it because it's so rare that I'll see a movie and, like, I'll go to sleep and the characters in the story will still be, like, in my head. And I'll still be thinking about them and wake up with them sort of in my head. And I thought, wow, that's a really powerful performance. But then I started to hear from some women saying they didn't like him and that he wasn't likable.
He's a bastard.
So I thought, okay, well, that's going to hurt it, you know, because they're not going to pick someone they don't like, you know.
But also, I think there was this criticism we all fell for early on, too, like, oh, it's too stagey. Yes, it's a classic, immortal stage play, Pulitzer Prize winning, Tony sweeping stage play. It's literature. That's like saying, oh, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf is too stagey, therefore it doesn't count.
Or Streetcar.
Or Streetcar. You know. Or 12 Angry Men, or The Lion in Winter. It's like, shut up.
It's a great example. Yeah, I mean, you either like believe in the actors or you don't. And if you're someone who comes from theater, like I do, and you see that kind of, you don't see that very often anymore, that sort of kind of deep, intense, actor-driven project like Fences is.
So how did Fences lose the Ensemble Award at SAG? Wasn't that fascinating? There was no distinct frontrunner without La La Land there. And you could make a compelling argument for a lot of for Moonlight, even for Manchester by the Sea. I went with Fences, I thought, because they were going to these are snooty actors, so of course they're going to go for the play. But in fact, they went for Hidden Figures. I have my theory as to why, but before I give you my theory as to why, I want to hear your theory.
Okay, I'm going to guess what your theory.
But Barbara, keep in mind,
I have
the only major competitor in that category not to send DVDs to SAG voters, and it still won. Hidden Figures.
Wow.
And Marcus Dixon, to him, our senior editor, is the only editor at Gold Derby who got that category right. None of the experts did. Good old Marcus, and his theory is it was the women's vote. That all of the other, like in Fences, Viola is a supporting category, arguably, a character, arguably. And look, Hidden Figures is a big hit now at the box office. It's a great movie, but it also has this refreshing diversity in terms of gender to it that helps with the women's vote, I would
It
think.
does. And don't forget Taraji P. Henson has a huge following of friendships and TV actors.
That TV thing, because AFTRA is now part of SAG,
Yeah.
and very often you have to remember that component is important. So as you're saying, Taraji's TV background is very important to the voters. That film snobs may go, oh, who cares about cooking? But that's a big deal among AFTRA.
But I was starting to notice a lot of goodwill generated towards Hidden Figures in the lead up to that. I didn't think it was enough to change the vote, but so many people all over, but kind of like Moonlight's the same way. You see the same sort of goodwill floating around about that, like please let it be Moonlight, but I've seen a lot of please let it be Hidden Figures. I think from the screening that I saw, from the box office, from the word of mouth, other than a few negative hit pieces here and there about how, it's white filmmakers and whatever, the typical stuff. But this idea of rooting for these 3 math nerds who were black, who are real people. And Obama gave the Medal of Freedom to one of them. And so this is Obama's last year. I think that people are making the connection between him somehow in this movie and a different kind of American history. And I think so Hidden Figures has importance that other movies don't in this race.
And that's why I think it's a real contender in the screenplay race. Hidden Figures is very much like Imitation Game, which pulled off an upset for screenplay a couple years ago. It's the underappreciated people behind the scenes that who really achieve greatness for the nation, and so it follows that formula. And I think that we learned a real lesson that this movie is a force at the Oscars too. I don't think it can win Best Picture. I don't think any of us are saying that, but watch out for it in some of these other races. I
agree. Like, let's say you take all this goodwill towards Hidden Figures and you put it in the Oscar race. We don't have it currently predicted for anything. Well, it's going to win something. It's got to win something, right? Because people love it too much. It's making as much money as La La Land. It's like La La Land is 106 million and Hidden Figures is 104 million, and they're tracking evenly. And if Hidden Figures pulls ahead and makes 150 million, like, are they really just going to let it go with not a single win? I don't think so. Like, The Help got supporting actress, but nobody's taking down Viola Davis, so forget that. There's no supporting. So the only other place it can win is picture or screenplay, right? So to win screenplay, it has to take down Moonlight, and that's going to be really hard. But if it wins script, if it wins WGA and then Oscar, listen, all the heats in original screenplay at WGA, that's Moonlight, Manchester by the Sea, and La La Land, all in original. That leaves the Adapted Open for Hidden Figures to overtake Arrival as the winner there. And if it wins there, you're going to see a white woman get on stage and accept the award, which isn't the greatest thing, but it's a woman. It's a woman writer, and how often do women writers win? Never. So she might win, and then it might go to Oscar, and it might win. And unfortunately, that means Moonlight doesn't win, and it deserves to win something beyond just supporting actor, My ideal Oscars would be La La Land for picture, Barry Jenkins for director, Denzel Washington for actor, Emma Stone for actress, that's fine, she's great in it. And screenplay Hidden Figures, let's say, okay, fine. Moonlight gets director so it can sacrifice screenplay. So screenplay Hidden Figures, screenplay, what's the other one?
Moonlight's going to get supporting actor, right?
Moonlight. Moonlight's going to get supporting actor. And then
who's the screenplay? At least it wins there. If your point is that if voters are going to divvy up the wealth that way.
If they did, then Barry Jenkins becomes the first black director in 89 years of Oscar history to win, which is incredible. I don't think he will. I think it's La La Land all the way down the line, but I'm just saying, throwing it out there as a possible alternative. But I think 14 nominations, you got to take La La Land seriously, and I'm wondering if it's even going to take down Manchester by the Sea and screenplay, an original screenplay, which it might. They might just win everything. Picture, director, screenplay, actor.
La La, remember, won screenplay at the Globes. That was an eye opener there. So what would be, Sasha, just looking over the whole top 8 categories of the Oscars, where is Mark Rylance jaw dropper? That was, we all got humbled last year by that, going, wow, how did this guy win? He didn't campaign. There wasn't all that much support for the film. It was up for Best Picture, yes, etc. But still, Tom Hanks didn't even get nominated. So is there the chance that we could see, for example, and this is a very selfish thing for me to say because I'm a big Jackie lover, but is there a chance that Natalie Portman could pull through? Here's why I think that would be a remote possibility, but a possibility. And that is, sure, Emma won SAG, but there was no other place to put your La La vote if you're a SAG voter. You have to go there. Ryan Gosling's not going to win. It's not pretentious enough as a piece of actorly stuff.
Right.
So, and not an ensemble, so you have to give it, Emma gets a boost there. But at the Oscars, where everybody over there is my age or older, in other words, in geezer land, they remember Jackie. This is a profound experience. It's transformative, as you mentioned before, which is a priority to Oscar voters. And she's still in that honeymoon period of, it was 6 years ago she won for Black Swan. And we know that they give 2 in a row to Sally Field and 2 in a row to Christoph Waltz and Sean Penn and Hilary Swank. And you could see it happening to Natalie, but is it, and her role has more gravitas and pretension than Emma's done. That said, do you think there's any chance that Natalie can pull this off?
No, I don't. But I do think that Ruth Negga could.
Oh, come on.
I swear to God, you heard it here first.
Explain.
You heard it here first, my friend. All right, well, let's just say this. I know that I have been really wrong this year on a lot of things. One of my blind spots was underestimating La La Land. I'll cop to that. A lot of people think that I have, and I have. I've been underestimating it. I sort of agreed with Ann Thompson at the beginning of the race, which was it just wasn't professional enough for the Academy. They weren't going to go for it because it wasn't, it was amateurish looking, but it's supposed to be because it's got a kind of nice feel to it. It wants to be like a kind of a casual, breezy day in LA, and that works for it. So I underestimated that, but there were a couple of other things we all really underestimated and we didn't call right that sort of popped up. Captain Fantastic and Viggo Mortensen was one. He sort of came out of the blue. Pundits had nothing to do with that.
Right.
But
by the way, do you know that one of the reasons that scored so well was, if you look back on the calendar that we run of when the DVD screeners came out, Captain Fantastic was sent to Oscar voters the first week of November. And that was earlier, and I think, and what was the other movie that was sent really early that explains a lot of how some of these, Hell or High Water. Hell or High Water and Captain Fantastic got out there really early with those early screeners, and that made a difference for them.
It sure did, and the publicist on Captain Fantastic is obviously one of the best in the business, and I didn't know was on Captain Fantastic. Same person who was on Trumbo last year who got those nominations in, and that's some stealth work there. Because in our business, pundits contact us and they say, this person is somebody you need to focus on. So we either do or we don't, depending on how we think they're doing. But I didn't hear anything about, I heard a couple of people here and there, but I felt like that nomination to become a strong 5th slot contender, that was an oversight. So I feel like there are things we're not looking at. And one of those things is La La Land is the unstoppable force. Oscar So White is the immovable object. So there's a thing that's going to be happening with that, which is there's going to be an effort and a desire to reward people of color. And I'm not saying they're going to get it just because they are people of color. I'm just saying that I feel like that's what the Academy does. That's what they did in 2001 with Halle Berry and Denzel Washington. They kind of overreact to something that's happened because they don't want to be thought of as horrible racists, and that was an unprecedented thing that happened last year. The hashtag of global boycotts, they changed their membership, they changed their rules. Do we really think coming out of that year that it's just going to be a sweep of La La Land? I'm not so sure. So in there somewhere are going to be some upsets, and I think if they are, they're going to come from that place of wanting to reward.
How could they come from that place if we already now say that 3 of the acting races will go to people of color? Mahershala Ali and Viola Davis and Denzel, right?
Right, for sure. And it could just be that. They could just say that's enough, but maybe not. If I was telling someone to bet money, I would say bet it all on La La Land for every category. You can't lose. If you put La La Land in 14 categories as the winner, you're going to come out with a pretty decent score. Even if you miss a couple, you're going to come out with a really good score. You have no idea which ones it's going to win. But betting it wins a lot is a pretty good game, you know? Figuring out which ones it's going to lose. Is it going to lose sound editing? Is it going to lose costumes? You know, it's not going to lose score. It's not going to lose song. Probably not going to lose sound. Production design.
It's very unusual for it to win screenplay. I think you've got to go back to the 1950s with Gigi and that kind of stuff for a movie musical to win screenplay. So,
yeah, but it's just like Gigi, isn't it? It's just like An American in Paris and Gigi. It has that same theme. Right. So, I mean, if you want to look for a model for winner, that's it. Those movies, those old movie musicals that he pays homage to, you know, and there are a lot of members of the Academy that are just going to be swept up in that, you know, because you can't help it. It's just a movie you fall in love with and, you know, you sail away with, and it wins a record number of Golden Globes, you know. I mean, seems to me like if I entered a contest that had nothing to do with people who knew me, I'd just go 14 wins for La La Land.
Yeah, we haven't seen an undefeated sweep though since Lord of the Rings. That was a while ago, but it did win every single category and tied the record at 11. But yeah, La La is special. It has that emotional tug like The Artist and Slumdog Millionaire and Titanic. It has that overwhelming romantic feeling to it that Oscar voters adore. And by the way, I think it's a great thing. I think it's wonderful that Shakespeare in Love beat Saving Private Ryan. And one of the reasons it did was because of that great romanticism, that which is scorned by film critics. They absolutely go on into attack mode when they see movies as sentiment.
They hate that one, but I tell you what, Shakespeare in Love was a better movie than.
Yes, that's right. You and I have always agreed on that.
And I say that because Shakespeare in Love is like a perfect film. I've seen it maybe 100 times, and it's one of my favorite films. I love La La Land, but it's not, for me personally, it's not quite enough that Shakespeare in Love is, which you know, teases my brain because it's like a Shakespeare quote every 5 seconds and a Shakespeare reference, and you're kind of like, okay, what does that mean? What does that mean? What does that mean? Well, you know, La La Land doesn't do that, but it's not meant to do that. So I think it's a better movie for people who see it a couple of times, maybe 1 time, 2 times, you know, and they just love. I'll tell you one thing about La La Land is the music and the songs are just incredible.
Oh yeah.
And to me,
I bought it. I was at the Toronto Film Festival at the North American premiere in the Princess of Wales Theatre with I think 1,200 other people when it debuted, and when the lights came up, the audience exploded like you were at a rock concert. The energy was just pure madness. Yeah. And I bought the whole thing, you know, I'm a little old lady at heart, and I
don't blame you. I mean, that last part, wow. Nobody can argue with that. Like, that's just plain old great filmmaking. And that's, to me, why it's going to win, is because of the end. I don't think if the movie was all the movie up to that point, it could, but that last part is...
So if it had the classic Hollywood happy ending thing, no, but it had to have the lesson that, yeah, you've got to pay the ultimate painful price for this town, for La La Land. And they pay that price, and they are okay with it at the end, begrudgingly, and move on.
Yeah, I mean, you could almost call it a noir musical in that way. Like, it's almost...
I like that a lot.
Yeah, because it's like La La Land.
Adjust my lighting here. Keep talking while I adjust my lighting.
I know, well, you look 100 times better than me. Jeez.
Oh no! Speaking of noir, you know, we're here with sun setting. We're both in a kind of dark setting. Hey, now, Sasha, you're going to the Oscars again. I've never done that. I've been backstage. I've done that.
Why don't you go?
I know. So, what's it like to be there in the audience? You're going again, right?
First of all, I'll say again, I don't know how it is I managed to get a ticket to the Oscars. I have no idea why they invited me. It's very nice of them, but they invited.
But think about this. This is how privileged you are that you're invited. There are only 3,000 seats at that Dolby Theater. There are 6,000 Academy members. They don't have enough seats for the Academy members, and the nominees, and the studio chiefs, and the rest of it. But Sasha Stone gets to go. No,
it goes without saying that none of them would want to sit where I sit.
Where do you sit?
Those seats are like, they're so far up that no Academy member would go. They just wouldn't dress up and go all the way out there to sit way up there. I mean, in a way, it's like you miss out on the Oscar experience if you go, because the whole juice of the Academy Awards is down on the first floor and with the cameras and what's going on there. You get a totally different idea of it when you're there, when you're watching it on TV. It looks like this big, bright room and all this stuff. You think, oh, if I was there, I would be sitting down there and I could go, oh, there's Meryl Streep. But you're not, you're way up here. And so it's like a TV show. So it's like you see them go on, you see the lights, in 5, in 3, 2, 1, the lights come up and they do this next part. They hand out an award, there's minimal applause. The people I'm sitting with are either, we're all doing our predictions as we're watching. Okay, that's going to win, that's going to win, that's going to win. And then, but it's not like it is on TV. It's just more exciting and more romantic when you watch it on TV than when you're there. And since I know La La Land's going to win everything, I'm probably going to have a better time because I'll just be sitting there, drinking, relaxing, and watching people win, But it doesn't
talk about the drinking, because that's what everyone said is so much fun. The bar, right? Isn't it? There's a bar in the lobby or something, and the cool thing to do is to hang out there and listen to the gossip, because while the show's going on, very often, a lot of the stars are back there.
All of them. I mean, I don't go there because every floor has its own bar, don't forget. So I'm stuck way up here in the bar up here. It's like John, the biggest star is like John Savage with his escort. It's like, I don't know if he has an escort. Sorry, I don't mean to offend, but so, and I go alone because I don't get a spare ticket. So it's not that fun, for me. I mean, it's fun and from an observation standpoint to see how it all goes down. The drinks are always really good, and everything the Academy does is top notch. Like it's so perfect. It's a well-oiled machine. The food is great. Everything about it is just fantastic. The people are so nice that work there. And the show itself isn't as traumatic, frankly, if you're watching it live. It just sort of feels like part of life. It's not a big deal. When you're at home, you're kind of like going, oh my God, I can't believe that won, But I figure every time they invite me, I have to say yes, because there'll be one day where they don't. And then that'll be that. It'll be over. But if I say no, I'll never get invited again.
Oh, it must be a blast. What happens during commercial breaks? Do they scold the audience because they didn't clap loud enough during the last break and when they came in from commercial?
No, never. But but I'll tell you, I was there the night of poor what's his name, who bombed out so bad, Neil Patrick Harris, and you could feel the awkwardness all the way up in my seats. Like it was really like. It wasn't good. And the lights, at the commercial break, people get up and they go out to the lobby. And then they won't let you in unless you get in before the thing, So a lot of times it's a rush to get out, get your food, and then come back before they shut the door and they won't let you in for the next part, So that's really what I see a lot happening at the Oscars is people going in and going out, coming back, going out, coming back, on every floor. That's what they do. Because it's really a big party happening outside of the theater, I don't think you can hear it when you're watching it on TV, but that's what's happening. We see a lot of seat fillers. I think there's a lot of times where they say, okay, Meryl, you've got to go sit in your seat because we're about to give out Best Director. So she comes running back out. But a lot of them spend their time out in the bar.
Yeah, that's what
so, but it is fun to get dressed up and to go out and be a part of an event, I don't regret it. I'm glad that at the end of, 20 years or whatever of doing this, that I get to do that. So people always ask me, did you go to the Oscars? So now I can say that I did. But
I've done the press room thing. I don't like that at all. That's not glamorous. And people think, oh, how cool. It was cool back in the days before they had a live stream. So you could see what was going on at home. But now it's great if you're a blogger, let's say in our business, you get to sit at home with the on your TV set is the Oscar show live. On your laptop is what's being streamed backstage live. And it's probably been years since I went backstage and did that routine. But there were no desks that you could put your computer. You had to put it in your lap. It was just awkward. It was like the Golden Globes. It was just awkward and it's not set up properly. And it was just awful.
Well, it's also you get all the way down there and the stars don't come into the room. Like I did it one time and it was like so-and-so would win and they wouldn't come back because they wanted them to be in the audience. So you got the sound editing people or whatever, the short film winners, but you never got the director, you never got the actors, But the good food and good drink there at the press room. The food's better at the press room than it is at the Oscars, actually.
Yeah, in general, the food is so bad at these award shows. I don't go anymore. I have my editors go because I've been to so many award shows over life that they're still excited to be there. And I always say when they go, take pictures of the food. I want to see if it's ever gotten any better at the Golden Globes. And it's still the old stale ham sandwiches.
Always. It's the same stuff. They only bring out the same stuff. I would tell anybody going to the Oscars if they were me and they were going to be sitting high is to eat first. Don't go hungry. Because I did one time and I was like, oh God, there's no food. But good drinks, everybody gets drunk, really drunk. So Tom, let's hear your prediction of how many Oscars La La Land's going to win. Let me have your count.
Well, it can't win all 14 because it's nominated against itself for song, right? So 13 is the max.
Actor, it's not going to win actor.
It's true. It's not going to win actor, so it's down to 12. I think it goes 12. I think I have it for screenplay right now. I think it just generates so much love that how do you not vote for it? I mean,
all I know is that from a stat person's point of view, the only movie that's ever won a decent amount of Oscars with the preferential ballot was Gone with the Wind, and it only won 8. So La La Land will be breaking a record, but of course you have to explain to people that it only breaks a record with the preferential ballot, and nobody ever wants to hear that because it's like this complicated conversation. But usually what it means is that there's more than 5 Best Picture nominees, and so they tend to spread the wealth because Oscar voters like to pick. They like to award Best Picture nominees. And if there's 5 movies up for Best Picture, sweeps are more likely because they only have to pick 1 movie out of 5. But if they have 9 or 8 or whatever it is, Gone with the Wind, I think there was 10, maybe more.
Yeah, formidable films like Wuthering Heights and Wizard of Oz and major movies were up against Gone with the Wind. It's not, the problem this year is it's a real serious rival to La La Land.
Not in the text, for sure.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The tech categories are going to be owned by La La Land because it doesn't, like you say, it doesn't have any competition. I still think there's some wiggle room in costumes.
Yes, and Jackie or something could take that.
I think
right?
Jackie, I'm predicting Jackie for that. Yeah, because those costumes are incredible. Yeah. But if I had to pick one thing I had been sort of weird about or wrong about, and all of us were, is Jackie. Like, why didn't it really get as much love as we all thought it would? Like, that was sort of a head scratcher,
It is. It was my second favorite film of the year after La La. I don't quite get it. I'm crestfallen by the whole thing because what the difference between you and me, Sasha, is I used to do what you do. I used to get out there and when I love a movie, sell it to our readers. Just exult in the joy of it, and that's part of the fun of what we do because everyone who follows the Oscars wants us to root for things. Sometimes we go too far. I don't do that anymore. I used to go over the top, and I'm still taking bruises for everything from Dreamgirls to Sweeney Todd, for that matter. But
Moulin Rouge.
What's that?
Didn't you love Moulin Rouge?
Oh yeah, Moulin Rouge. I just lost my tips over that. Yeah. So, but I don't do it anymore. But you still do. When you love something like Social Network, you just go on campaign, don't you?
No, I stopped this year though. I held back because I loved Arrival so much that I purposefully said, keep your trap shut because you're going to wreck this movie. I wrote about it a lot, but I would have written about it a lot more, except for I knew that I would be the kiss of death. So I kept my mouth shut, and it did well. I was really happy that it did well.
Reverse strategy work. There you go.
They all said it wouldn't. All the people coming out of Telluride said, no way is Arrival going to get picture, director. It totally did. It didn't get Amy Adams, but unfortunately. But I'm happy with the nominations it did get, And I'm happy that Moonlight did. A lot of people said nobody would pick Moonlight because it's too gay, and nobody will even watch it. But they watched it, and they nominated it, So it's not coming on as strong as I thought it would, and neither is Manchester by the Sea, to be honest. Like, I feel like that movie's dimmed a little because of the total blowout at the Golden Globes. Like, it didn't even win screenplay. I mean, they should have won at least screenplay there,
Well, the Globes had their own agenda, though. They didn't nominate Fences for Best Picture. Fences ended up getting nothing. Well, got Viola, but I don't think the Globes taught us too much this year, but as they normally do. But yeah, I still think though Manchester's in the race. Look, and it's Amazon, and they've got a huge war chest, and we know that that often helps a big deal in terms of the actual push, the campaign, the investment behind it, the soldiers you marshal, and they're doing that.
Well, its mission now is to take down La La Land and original screenplay.
I know.
That's their mission. They've got to do it.
Manchester's also in the fight for, actor, of course.
Actor, but Denzel's a force to be reckoned with. The two performances side by side, Denzel Washington's huge, powerful, bombastic. Casey is very sweet and sad and wonderful, but I think Casey's win is going to be wrapped up in how much they love and want to award Manchester by the Sea. So the better the movie does overall, the better. If it can climb in the box office, if it can get some sort of story at its center. If I were them, I would bring the sexual harassment thing out front and center.
No, he's dealt with it already. No, he's smart to look. Mark Rylance didn't campaign last year. Monique famously didn't campaign, and she won. I think they're playing that part of it just right, but they do need a reboot as they go into phase 2, because it is a loved film and people feel a strong emotional connection to it, and that's what Moonlight has going for it. I'm really surprised by the strength of the film, but when I look at it, try to analyze why is it doing, because I disagree with you. I think it's doing much better than I thought it would after I saw it in Toronto. That the secret of the film is the extraordinary success it has at empathy, at a lot of straight people who I kind of think it's like gay for dummies in many ways, right? As a gay man myself, I watch that and go,
I know that's what you think. I know. I didn't know you said it's a gay movie for straight people. Yeah.
But the reason it is, and it's such a good one, is that people really empathize with him and feel his suffering and feel his pain and anxiety. And I think that helps a lot.
I do too. I would have a couple of weeks ago I would have voted for Moonlight for Best Picture, but it's hard not to get caught up in the excitement of La La Land with all of its nominations and what it's accomplished this year. So it'd be really hard not to vote for that for Best Picture. But Moonlight really does make bring the feelings. So that's going to be a hard one to take down in screenplay. But I don't think Hidden Figures is going home empty-handed. So we'll see how it shakes down.
Here's my last question. Now we're saying something today that we would not have said 48 hours ago, which is Denzel is probably out front, or certainly in neck and neck now with Casey. Do we think that because he won SAG and therefore it's momentum, and therefore even though these Oscar voters claim that they're just so pig-headed, nobody can tell me what to do, these are the big egos of Hollywood, and in fact they're sheep when it comes down to it, and they do follow the lead? Or is it because that SAG is such a great test of a sampling of opinion within the industry that it plays out and tells us who's going to win?
Well, I'll tell you, SAG is, as we know, has a much higher population of Black voters than any other guild organization. That's why their choices reflect that. They don't just pick movies white people like. They pick movies that are part of the Black community and then more and more that's showing in the way they pick winners and the way they pick nominees. But I will say this, I went to the SAG screening of Fences. Chris Tapley went, Ann Thompson went, and right out of that screening, Chris actually said he thought Denzel was going to win his second Oscar, and he loves Manchester by the Sea. But he was convinced that that performance towered over all others. And I did too at first, but I switched to Casey because it seemed like he just couldn't lose. He kept winning everything, But the problem with winning the SAG is that it sets a train in motion, a momentum train that is hard to slow down. Not with picture necessarily, although it would have been to Lala's benefit to be represented there, for sure. Not that it matters, but it would have helped. It doesn't hurt, it would have helped. But that's for Denzel, getting up there and coming to tears during his speech. That means a lot, So that's the thing about award shows like SAG or Golden Globes, is you're getting your contenders in front of a camera and in front of a large audience. So it's different from winning the LA Film Critics or the New York Film Critics, because this creates talk. and buzz and chatter and word of mouth, and everybody's thinking about Denzel Washington right now. So that's a hardcore place to be. I mean, they're going to have to look at their Oscar ballots and go no to Denzel and yes to Casey Affleck, and they're going to have a good reason why they're doing it. And the reason could be he's already got 2 Oscars, so let's give it to someone who doesn't. The reason could be I didn't like his character. Could be I like Casey Affleck, and I don't like Denzel Washington. Or I liked Manchester by the Sea better than Fences. Whatever it is, it's harder for Casey to win now that he did win the SAG. That's just the bottom line.
I agree. Sasha, this is always so much fun to chit-chat with you. I'm not sure we figured it all out yet. I hope there's some surprises. It's always fun when a Mark Rylance pulls off the jaw dropper. But I'm happy this year. I love La La Land, and I love most of these films a lot. I'm emotionally invested, so it's a good year for me. It's not one of those years like No Country for Old Men where I just didn't care about the movie. Just like,
that was my year. That was my year, okay? That's like, I was so happy that year. I was like a bug in a rug. I'm not so good with I don't work as well in the feel-good framework. But I do like La La Land, and I think it's a worthy winner. So.
Okay, my dear. Thanks a bunch.
Darling.
The light is fading. We're running out of sunlight. Bye-bye.
Talk to you later. Bye.
Okay.